We're going to turn now to former diplomat Ian Kemish, who joins us now from the Sunshine Coast. A very good morning to you, Ian.
Good morning.
Morning to you both.
Right, so Julian Assange is back on Australian soil now, and as we mentioned it was a marathon talks and discussions over many years to try to get him back to Australia. But this is a really interesting article talking about how the US really wanted this to happen.
Very clearly, this is a really well-sourced article by Nicholson, and it casts a whole fresh look at exactly what was happening behind the scenes. As you say, the Americans clearly wanted this to happen. There were a series of cascading clauses in the agreement. If the judge in that remote US outpost in the Pacific in Saipan had actually not cooperated and not gone with the plea deal, there was an arrangement under which Julian Assange would have returned to Australia anyway under bail conditions, and a series of cascading clauses beyond that, which would still have led to the same outcome, that he is a free man. And you might say to yourself, well, this is clearly very good bargaining by Assange's legal team, but you might equally say, well, you know, the Australian government clearly leaned in a lot here to help bring about this outcome. But also, and this is a message that I think comes out of Karen's article, the Americans really wanted it to happen, and it might well be that they saw the writing on the wall themselves, that they saw that they might actually lose the extradition appeal in London and be faced with a much more difficult outcome than the one that has come about. Because from their perspective, justice has been served, he's pled guilty, he's been sentenced, and the matter's over.
Yeah, fascinating insights there. Let's talk about what else we're really covering this morning is the wash-up from the US presidential debate, the first one for this election campaign. But this article is actually talking about how the election debate is being viewed by the Russians.
Yeah, there hasn't been much of this kind of coverage yet, but there's this item in Politico is a good example. It's quite clear that the Kremlin itself and Putin himself is projecting as above all this, not interested. You know, the Kremlin spokesman made a real point of saying that the president certainly wouldn't be waking up early in the morning to watch this thing. He was above that. Much more important things to do. But pro-Kremlin commentators and the state news agencies have been very much out there emphasising a range of things. You know, first of all, there was a tally published in the state news agency of how many times Putin's name was mentioned, 16 as I understand it, by Trump, and not at all by Joe Biden. And then, you know, the references that Trump made to how badly the war was going in Ukraine is something that have been picked up significantly in the Russian media and by commentators. There's obviously a really strong interest, and it reminds us, of course, that the course of the war in Ukraine is potentially up there as a matter of, you know, that's in the balance when it comes to the US election.
Yeah.
There are several reasons Moscow might favour Trump. He has, after all, you know, threatened to withdraw the United States from NATO in the past. And he's been very critical and very sceptical of US aid to Ukraine. Putin has said that he probably prefers, on balance, Biden, but I'm not sure we should pay too much attention to that. It's a reminder that while we're heavily focused on the ins and outs of the debate, that global politics is still out there, and these issues have an influence on world affairs.
Yeah, they certainly would. Now, the course of the Ukraine war would also be affected by the French elections, quite possibly, given that they go to the polls on Sunday to elect a new parliament. And if the far-right National Rally controls parliament, well, then President Macron may be hamstrung in his efforts to support Ukraine.
Yeah, Moscow will be really investing quite a lot of hope, I imagine, in the outcome of these parliamentary elections that are that are actually unrolling right now. We'll see what happens, but the pundits are really quite clear that Marine Le Pen's national rally is in a strong position to dominate Parliament. That in turn will be a real constraint for President Macron. Think, a bit like in the US system, if the Congress was completely dominated by the other side and really putting serious restraints on the President of the United States, similar situation to that, effectively turning Macron possibly into a lame duck. And let's not forget that President Macron has been one of the most forward-leaning of Europe's leaders when it comes to Ukraine. France has undertaken to provide Ukraine with Mirage jets. And, Le Pen's party say that they'll probably honour that. But he's done more than that. He's even spoken in the past of possibly putting, French boots on the ground in Ukraine, something he did withdraw from. But, that forward-leaning posture will be very difficult for him to maintain if the right-wing national rally, which has a mixed history with Putin. Marine Le Pen has, personally been associated with Vladimir Putin in the past. If National Rally has control of the purse strings, it will be very, very hard for France to maintain the aggressive posture it has to date.
Yeah, certainly will. Ian Kemish, always great getting your insight on Weekend Breakfast. Thank you so much for joining us.